So we will move on to the story of Shmuel. And this is the story of Hannah. And Hannah...
You've just been doing this with
my father.
Ralph.
Oh, I thought he does the Sedra.
Yeah, this is Haftarah today.
Oh, the Haftarah, because it's going to be for Rosh Hashana.
Another point of view too, so I'm really interested.
Okay. Well, I'm only going to talk about it for a very short time, so that you're going to be the experts. You'll be able to tell me about it then. Okay. So, background: if all of you are there, Hannah has no children. Penina is married to Elkanah. She has child after child after child, and Hannah really wants a child, and she wants a child, not because she wants to dress him up and put him in a cute little bow tie and walk him around. It's because she wants him to be Eved Hashem. She wants him to serve in the Beis HaMikdash, and she looks after him till he's very young, and then he goes to serve in the Beis HaMikdash under the tutelage of Eli HaKohen. And Hannah is davening and davening and davening, and nobody has ever davened quietly before. Hannah davens, and Eli sees her. Did you learn this part? Eli sees her, and the Urim V'Tumim comes up, and the letters come up, and it looks like it says Shikora, she is drunk. The 4 letters come up. Anyone know the story of Urim V'Tumim? So the Kohen Gadol has a breastplate, and it has 12 stones on it, and it lights up with little letters, and it came up with the way that I don't know how they had prophecy at the first Beis HaMikdash, and it came up with the letters Sin, Kaf, Resh, Hey. Shikora, she is Shika. And she's saying, listen, Eli, not. What it is either Kasora or Kashera. She is kosher or she's like Sora. You're misunderstanding how she's behaving. So here comes Hannah, she's davening, and Eli is like not seeing what she's doing, and she's not so, he thinks she's like a bit of a lunatic, because she's not, perhaps before people prayed with a loud voice. And as she kept on praying before Hashem, ve'eli shomer es piha, and Eli is watching her mouth. V'chana hi medaberes al liba, and she's talking on her heart. And I don't know if you're going to learn this with Ralph. She's talking on her heart, and she says to Hashem, liba, my heart, look at my chest. What have you given me? I've got breasts. What are my breasts here for? I should be suckling a child. What'd you give this to me for? What am I doing? Only her lips were moving. V'kola, and her voice, lo yishamea. Her voice was not heard. Remember I told you the theme of my speech is voices? This is a woman who has a voice, and her voice is inaudible. You can't hear her voice. Vayachshaveha Eli l'shikora. So the Medrash says, Eli thought she was drunk. She'd been intoxicated. Vayomer eleha Eli ad mosai tish takarin. How long are you going to be drunk for? Sober yourself up. So for me, this story is about someone who's absolutely desperate, and about people who are sitting in shul on Rosh Hashana who are davening. For her, in her case, it was for a child that she didn't have. Other people are sitting in shul and they're davening for a shidduch, parnosa. The list goes on. Health. So many things people are davening in shul. And here we have Hannah, who gives us the archetype prayer. She is standing. Her voice is inaudible. She's quiet. Eli thinks, what's the matter with her? Is she a raving lunatic? But she is davening with all her heart.
There's a lot of comparison there with Rachel and Bega as well, because Rachel also, after all her tzidkah, she was childless for so many years.
And Sarah.
But Rachel had to watch Leah have child after child, in the same way that Hannah was watching Penina.
I know, but all these thoughts should be going through our minds in Rosh Hashana. What are people thinking about? What are people davening for? Just before I go on, I just wanted to say that in Melachim Aleph, Yud Tes, Yud Beis, I know that you were learning Melachim with Mrs. Becker. Hashem, how do we know what Hashem's going to be? So we know that Har Sinai, we have kolos of rokim, and we see there was thunder and lightning, or whatever it is. But Melachim, we have Va'acha Hara'ash, Eish, V'lo Bo'esh, Hashem, Va'acha Ha'esh, Kol Domama Daka. Hashem is found in the still, silent, soft murmuring voice. Doesn't have to be a fanfare. Hashem can be found anywhere. It doesn't have to be the fireworks. It's just an idea that cries can be loud or silent. Somebody in shul can be davening and you can be watching them, or they could be watching you. And people can have an issue. Like, I have a friend, unfortunately, her child's in hospital. Everybody knows that her child's in hospital. But there are people who are going through trials and tribulations that no one sees. There are cries that people are doing. You have absolutely no idea. I have absolutely no idea. There could be people sitting in this room, sitting in shul. Nobody knows what the other person's going through. And even, God forbid, I have a cousin who lost a child. The wife coped better. They both lost the same child, and the husband coped terribly. So two people can suffer the same loss or pain or circumstance. People have got different natures. People cope with things different. Do we hear the voices that people don't say? When we're talking to people that we're friendly with, or the acquaintances or family members, sometimes people say things, and sometimes people tell us how they're feeling or what they're thinking or what their troubles are. But sometimes they are like Hannah, and it's a voice that you don't hear. You have to listen to hear something that's inaudible. What are people not saying? And I think the idea of kol coming up all the time on Rosh Hashana is that we have no idea what anyone else is going through. And in particular, I left Hannah to the last because we say, V'kola lo yishomea, her voice was not heard. We have the story of Hagar, whose voice is heard, but we don't hear the voice of the lad. But Hashem hears the voice of the lad. Around us, all over, are people who are saying things and are not saying things. Hashem answers.
People want to have somebody who wants to say something as a form of therapy, but they know the person standing in front of them doesn't want to hear it.
I know, but maybe if someone does want to say something, we have to make ourselves available, or to make the other person feel that we are available for them, to be willing to listen to what they're saying. Avraham and Yitzchak have very little dialogue in the story of the Akedah. But even Yitzchak, so to speak, according to the Mefarshim, understood what Avraham didn't say. He said words, but what was he saying? Are we listening carefully when other people speak to us? Are we hearing what they're saying and what they're not saying? Rachel cries. Kol barama nishma Rachel mavaka abana. She's crying. She doesn't say anything in Yirmiyahu. So we've got the Medrash which fills in the gaps and says, my life was so terrible. Look what I did. But we don't always know what people are thinking about. Hannah is praying for a child. Obviously, it was obvious, in inverted commas, that her Penina had loads of children. She didn't have children. That was the thing she was davening for. I think there's a lot of stories of barren women, the Hannah, Rachel, Sarah. And also we have the story of the Akedah, a father and a child. We don't see what Avraham says. He doesn't even tell his own child. No voice comes out. We don't have Avraham saying, this is so terrible for me. He just gets on with it. He gets up and gets on with it. So now we come to the maftir on both days, which is Bamidbar, Perek Kaftes, Aleph Tavov. And those are the korbanos. We're up to source 14 on the sheet, but it's just on the front page. I'm just reading what it is. We read both days. We have the second Sefer Torah. We're at the bottom of page 3. Everyone got it? Uva chodesh hashvi'i, and on the 7th month, be'echad lachodesh, on the first day of the month, mikra kodesh yeh lachem, kol malachas avodah lo sasu, you shall not do any work, yom teruah yeh lachem. This is what we call it. It's never called Rosh Hashana in the Torah. It's called Yom Teruah. Rosh Hashana next week is going to be our day of Teruah. What is Teruah? Blowing the shofar. But the Targum Onkelos translates it the following. I'm not going to read the Aramaic so well, but I'll just read the last three words. Yom Yevova Yehei Lachon. This should be a day of Yevova. And, well, that's a good question. You're my modern Hebrew expert. You tell me what Yevova is. Crying.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rivka. Okay. So the Gemara in Rosh Hashana tells us that Yehei Lachon ukesiv Be'ima de Sisra. The word Yevava, you want to know what Yevava is? Go and look in the book of Judges, in Sefer Shoftim, the story of Sisra. And the lady in the picture is an artistic picture of the mother of Sisra. And in fact, Mrs. Rubin said right at the beginning, this is a picture of Sisra. This is an artist. And as I said, it could be absolutely anybody you like. I'll just put this here in case anyone can't see it. I have it in colour. Sorry, well, you can have mine then. There you go. If you Google Mother of Sisra painting, you'll see this picture. Here is a picture of this woman. Now, I said it could be absolutely anybody, and I think it could be Hannah, who's waiting, watching over her son Eli. It could be Hagar waiting, although I don't think she would be dressed so beautifully. It could be Sarah waiting for Abraham and Yitzchak to come back. It could be... Sorry?
But our head's not covered in this concept of...
How could you tell what that is?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but when it was done, there wasn't a shite, it had to be something...
Okay, but I think I'll check up for you afterwards when the painting was made. I think in the Middle Ages. Okay, so this picture is supposed to portray the lady who is the mother of Sisera. And who is Sisera? So the story of Sisera is he was a powerful general of the king Yovin of Chatzar. In chapter 4 and 5 of Shoftim, it tells us how Sisera oppressed the Israelites for 20 years with a mighty army. And it was the time of Devorah, and she summoned up Barak, who raised an army against him. And with Hashem's help, they defeated Sisera. And we have the image of Sisera's mother, who is, I can imagine, very proud of her murderous son, who is the captain of the army. But she waits for him to come home every night. And one night, he's not coming home. And he's not back. And she is thinking to herself, the inevitable has happened. So, well, he was killed in battle, right? So we have, this is Sisera's mother. Okay, so it's Shoftim, source 16 on your sheet. Ba'ad hachalon nishkafa. Through the window, Sisera's mother is peering out. Vatayabeb aim Sora. And she is wailing, bitterly, crying. Ba'ad ha'enshof. She is behind the behind the lattice. She is wailing. Madua boshesh richvo. Why is he delayed? Why is he back so late? Why is his chariot so late? Lavo. Madua echoru pa'amei markavosov. And why can't I hear the sound of his chariot, the clatter of his wheels coming? Chachmos soroseha ta'anena. Her, the wisest of her ladies, I suppose ladies in waiting, answer her. Afhi toshiv amorehala. She also answers herself. She knows exactly, if he's not back in time for dinner, he's had a terrible ending, and he actually did have a terrible ending. What on earth are Chazal telling us in Gemara and Rosh Hashana, which is following the idea behind what the Targum says, that we are going to have Yom Teruah. This is Rosh Hashana. Why are we talking about the mother of Sisera? I don't want to be like, why do we care about her? But we've got Sarah, Rachel, Hannah. Why are we now talking on the Haftorah talking about Sisera's mother? And we say that on Rosh Hashana we blow the shofar, and it's supposed to be teruah. What is teruah? The Targum tells us it's yevova. It's bitter, deep crying and wailing, the type of crying and wailing that a mother would have, waiting for her child and assuming the inevitable. When we sit in shul on Rosh Hashana, there are all types of reasons why people are crying. And we're supposed to think to ourselves, people, I don't want to say the genuine, heartfelt, bitter cry when we are feeling the emotions, the raw emotions of teruah, should be like that of a mother who doesn't know if her child's coming back. It should be like that of Sarah, who doesn't know, is Yitzchak coming back? What's happened to him? The shofar has no voice. It's the kol shofar, it's the sound of the shofar, but there are no words. On Rosh Hashana, we can daven, but sometimes words limit. Putting something into words, in fact, limits what is being said. And sometimes something can't even be articulated. Sometimes the pain of another cannot be articulated. As I said before, the sound we hear and the sound we don't hear. Perhaps we have something to say that we don't even want to utter it. I mean, I think back to people who lived through the Holocaust who couldn't even tell the horrors of their experiences. It's not like they forgot, it's just that they couldn't even limit or make the other person understand what they had gone through by saying the words. Just saying the words would limit what they experience into words. And perhaps sometimes nothing or the sound of the shofar would be the right sound. And Chazal tell us that we blow the shofar 100 times. There are some people who do 101 times because there are 100 letters in this phrase of Bayad hachalo nishkafo vatayabeb em sarabad anshaf. There are 100 letters in her prayer. And we say that even though her son was the most wicked, horrible man who caused tremendous trouble for Bnei Israel, even we can hold back one of her prayers, so to speak. We don't blow the shofar. We counteract her tefillas for her son to come back. But that cry of a mother who cares about her son, lamenting, waiting and wailing, waiting for her son to come back, we don't want to take that away because that is a human thing that everybody has. We've only got a few more minutes left, so I'm going to move on and just talk about the fact that Sarah was also a person who was waiting for her son to come home. At the Akedah, we don't know what happens. And the name Sarah herself, her name is Shin Resh He. And it's an acronym for the words Sarah Rosh Hashana. Sarah Rosh Hashana, or Shofar Rosh Hashana. On the Rosh Hashana, we hear the shofar. We hear the sound of a mother crying. And there's an intrinsic connection between Sarah and Rosh Hashana. And we've got the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, source 19 on your sheet. Kisheba'a Avraham mehar HaMoriah, chara apo shel Samael. When Avraham returned from Har HaMoriah with Yitzchak, the angel Samael, the Soton, his anger was kindled. Shera'a shelo alsa b'yodo, because he wasn't able to prevent the sacrifice of Avraham Avinu. Obviously, he didn't sacrifice his son, but he sacrificed the ram. Ma'asa, what did he do? Halach va'amar Sarah. And he went along and he said to Sarah, hi Sarah, lo shamata ma na'aseh ba'olam. Haven't you heard what's going on in the world? Haven't you heard the latest gossip? Have you watched the news today? Amra lo love. She said no. Amar la, he says, the angel, the Soton, says to Sarah, Lakach ishech hazakein hana'a Yitzchak. Your old husband has taken Yitzchak. Vehikrivo la'ola. And he's taken him up as a burnt offering. It doesn't say sacrifice because you couldn't say the wrong words, okay? Vahana boche umeyalel. And the boy was crying, the same meyalel. It's like another type of the shofar. We say like it's meyalel, meyabeb, okay? And he was crying and weeping. Shelo yachol lahinatzel, because he was not able to be saved. Miyad hitchila bocha umeyaleles. And here we have Sarah, according to the Medrash in Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer 32:8. It's the voice of Sarah. She cries, Bachda shalosh bechios. She cries 3 cries, keneged shalosh tekios. Like parallel to the 3 times we blow the shofar. Shalosh yalalos keneged shalosh yavovos, uparcha nishmasa umesa. This is the source where we see that Sarah dies, because we have the story of Akedas Yitzchak immediately followed by Chayes Sarah, where Sarah dies. So there is this medrash which says Sarah was told by the Soton that Yitzchak was offered up and she dies. But we see, according to the medrash, that the Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer links Sarah, her cries, the cry of a mother who couldn't have a child, because the beginning is when she has this Yishmael in her house. The cry, she has 3 cries. There are the sounds of the shofar, or tekiah, which are supposed to be, yes, you could say the crowning Hashem the King, but we also have the broken cries of the Shavorim and the Teruah, which are supposed to be bitter, bitter wailing. I don't want to say inaudible cries, but when I was a little girl, there was a song about Yom Kippur. I don't know if anybody knows it. I'll sing it for Mrs. Mendelssohn's benefit. It used to go like this. On Yom Kippur, the holiest day, the people in Shul were surprised in this way. A little boy, does anyone know that song? Mm-hmm. No one knew why. All right, Shem, and this was his cry. He didn't know how to daven, so he was in Shul, and he just sat there with, and either there's a story that he played a little flute, or there's a story that he sat there and he goes, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, and Hey, if only I knew the words I should say, something like that. I can't remember the tune exactly. But there is another version of that story, is a little boy comes to Shul, and it's Yom Kippur, and he sits there, and he blows the flute, and the people in Shul go, get him out! Who is going to play the flute? It's Yom Kippur! And the rabbi said, what are you talking about? This boy doesn't know how to daven. He is going to daven with the power of his flute. He can't articulate what he wants to say. He is giving a sincere, heartfelt prayer. As we go to Shul on Rosh Hashana and we think about Sarah, Rachel's crying, not having children, Hannah, davening, people davening, we don't know what they're davening for. We might know. Are we willing to say something? Are we willing to listen to the sound of a shofar? Are we willing to listen to the sound of other people sitting near us? Do we hear what they say and what they don't say? I told you that I think the overarching theme of the whole of the Krias Hatorah of Rosh Hashana is kol. And we say, uteshuva, utefillah, utzedakah, ma'avirin es roah hagazera. And then there are those little words on top which say kol, momon, and tefillah. What's the last one? Kol, momon. What's the third one? I don't know, it's gone out of my head. Look on the machzi, you'll see it. And when you see it there, think about the word kol and think about the sound of the shofar, the inability to articulate our prayers, what we want to say, the inability of other people around us. What are they crying about? Are we listening? Can we hear the sounds that people don't make, the sounds of the cry of Sisra's mother, that we're supposed to emulate her cry, the true and utter heartfelt pain that a mother has for a child or anybody else has that we might meet or we might see. And what can we do throughout the year to bother to listen to the words that people say or the words that people don't say? I hope that you all have a wonderful Yom Tov, a kasiva v'chasima tova. Any questions?